Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon, a company run by Joe Ross. We appreciate Higher Echelon being on board for one more year here at the Black Knight Nation podcast, so we can bring you guests like this. We have a lot of football guests, but now in the last 2 days, we've gotten on Joe Aberisi, the head lacrosse coach, and now we welcome Chris Tracz, the Army baseball coach, to the Black Knight Nation podcast for the first time. Thanks, Chris, for joining us.
No, I appreciate doing this. Following Coach A is no easy feat, but happy to be on.
Yeah, we'll do our best. We'll do our best, right? Want to just talk to you a little bit about previewing the season. I guess you open up next Saturday in Cary, North Carolina against Monmouth. I was just thinking before we came on the differences between, like, you'll be facing Monmouth down there for your opener, and they might be in the same situation you are with being a Northeast team, right? And some of these other Northeast, some of the South teams, they're outside for a while, and you guys are what's kind of the situation like for you guys entering a season, like where you're doing a lot of your work inside, or do you get a chance to even get outside and enjoy a nice day?
No, that's a great question. It's kind of one of the unique things about, I think, being here is the facilities give us a chance. Obviously with starting in January it's not ideal for baseball, but being able to, we've got a hitting facility just down the hill from our field, which gives us a chance to get inside and hit, and we can throw bullpens in there. But then the Foley Athletic Center with football up by Mikey, that gives us the chance to really, like, we were up there, we can go live in there within reason. No outfielders, not so much, but you can get a little bit of a real feel. And then with the addition of the turf on Doubleday last winter, now if it's above 32 degrees, we're out there and can take BP, get fly balls, and kind of play baseball in a sense. This weekend, the weather's supposed to be really nice, so we'll get out and inter squad. And so we'll be a little bit ahead of the curve of what normally a Northeast team would have in some way. But yeah, most times you're putting little pieces of baseball together at a time and then hoping, when you get to North Carolina, Florida, Texas, wherever you go, it seamlessly comes together. So it's unlike probably any other sport in the fact that there are years that you will not actually play until the first game of the year.
Yeah, and I guess I was looking, your first home game, I think, is in March, and maybe the second week of March. So I mean, you're gonna have probably over 10 games before then, right? And
we're 4 weekends on the road, and then that fifth weekend, just because we have the turf, we're gonna give it a run and see. But again, that's 1 week before conference starts, where normally we would be on the road for 5 straight weeks, and that's here. Academically, that's a big challenge, and just the wear and tear physically, Thursday to Sunday for 4 or 5 straight weeks can take a toll.
Coaching a Northeast team is something that you're used to. You spent, most of your career at Marist. You were a former pitcher at Marist. So, I mean, was the transition? How was that transition? Because yes, Army's different academic wise and with the military duties of your players, but was there a big transition there for you going? You had a successful first year. Congratulations on that. You won the Patriot League, and what a season you guys had last year.
Yeah, no, it was, the transition is, I would say, is probably more internally, just the kind of how we operate from a recruiting standpoint, just the cyclical nature of West Point to kind of a traditional college environment. But once we got on the field, I mean, we were really, really lucky to come into a situation with some really, really good players, guys that want to win and knew how to win. And so the baseball end was probably the easiest part, when we could get on the field and practice and be with our guys and work with them. The internal part, again, of just understanding the differences of these guys, their 12-month calendar, to how we need to attack recruiting and the type of kids that we're going to go after. Again, like at Marist, we were within a 2-hour, 3-hour radius recruiting. Now I think this 24 class will have, I think it's 4 kids from California. So we've now, again, we're going to reach every corner of the U.S. recruiting wise. So it was in some ways very smooth transition. Others, we're still kind of learning some of the ins and outs, but the good thing is we have good players and good kids, so that makes it a heck of a lot easier.
No doubt. And you were at West Point for 1 year as a pitching coach, right before you took the Marist job. So, but was that even a good introduction for you to what you were going to be looking at now?
Yeah, obviously I think as an assistant, especially at that time, I was 26 years old. I was shielded in a lot of some of the West Point, the inner workings, but the exposure to the guys and what their day was like, what the stressors were, how they operated, and the type of kids that you want to attract, because obviously at that time that year we went to a regional Austin, Texas, won 2 games. It was one of the better years that the academy had seen on the baseball end. So, I got that taste. You've been playing the Army Navy game, like you get that introduction to it all. And then, I was lucky enough, my father-in-law is Dave McGarity. So for 16 years, we were here a lot. My wife and I, just being around West Point, and sometimes it was just as a fan sitting in Crystal Arena, but talking to him and kind of understanding some of the deeper, connections, relationships, and just again how West Point operated gave me a little bit more of an insight. But leaving West Point for Marist at the time was probably the only place that I would have gone, just because I think there was so much for me to learn at 25, 26 years old that this place could give me for the rest of my life, but to get a chance to go back to my alma mater at the time to be a head coach, was a situation that made sense. But I was lucky enough to kind of have a couple steps into it, and then once I got here, you start running pretty fast.
Yeah, when you're able at that age to go and be a head coach at the Division I level, right, and for it to be your alma mater, I mean, wow. And then the success you had there, what made you leave? What made you leave? You're at your alma mater, you're winning, you're having success, you're winning MAC championships. What made you come to West Point?
Yeah, it was West Point. I think it's different. And at Marist, we had our own unique challenges. From resource to facilities, and we made it work, and we grinded it out. And I think we tried to, at times, you're drawing blood from a stone. And I was fine doing it, and we were happy there. This opportunity to be able to come and try and continue, basically on the trajectory of the program and keep it at a really, really high level, but be associated with one of the greatest institutions in our country. To be resourced and from facilities, be in a place where if you do the right things, you're going to be successful. And then surround yourself with great people. For 13 years as a head coach there, for really 19 out of 20 years of my life, my whole adult life was Marist. And I think it was a good time for our family. If we were going to make a move, this was probably a good time. I have younger kids, so the impact wasn't too great. I kept my wife in the area, which she was comfortable in, which was outstanding. But really, it was West Point, like that. That name, the institution, what it means, the mission means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family. And then growing up, it was again Notre Dame and Army football. Like that was what I was always kind of taught by my grandfather and my family, and to get a chance to come here and to realize my career could be a place where you could be a head coach at West Point was too good to look the other way.
Were you at Army Navy games when you were younger, or were you at least you were watching them probably, right, or no?
Yeah, we were watching them, and it was just something that just kind of had a natural connection to. And then really, once I got into college, I was going to Army Navy games when I was an assistant at Marist. Post college, I'd probably been to 6 or 7 Army Navy games with teammates. It was just kind of, that was our like pilgrimage every year to reconnect and different things. So I've always had some sort of connection on the outskirts. I'm not from a huge military family outside of grandparents and that served, but there was just always something about it that was important and special to our family.
When you were at Marist, I know they had the Army Marist games, the Hudson Valley Baseball Classic. Did you get a chance to pitch against the Army or no?
No, so that was when I was that originated in, I forget which. I think I was at Marist at the time when it started. But yeah, in a 2-year span, I was coach, or 3-year span, I was coaching on every side of it. I think I've got the most wins because I was on the correct end of some of those. But that was always a cool atmosphere and a really neat day. And again, that was another place where you got to interact. You know, our guys at Marist got to interact with the Army players, and you see that they're very similar, but they're also not, right? Like there's there's a little something special to it. But you know, they always did a great job. Bob Barretta was the kind of I think the working horse behind getting that going. And we had some really great days. The fireworks, the clinics beforehand, 2,500 people in the stands. Like it was a really kind of a neat deal. And you got a trophy at the end. So it was a good, like mid-season kind of a little bit of like a playoff type atmosphere for one night, you know, during the year.
To talk now about your team this year and first the success last year, you said you were, when you came in, you had a pretty good bunch of guys, pretty good group of seniors. Kevin DeBrule, I know that shortstop, and Ross Friedrich, first baseman, who's playing in the minor leagues right now, I believe. And I mean, you said it wasn't that much of a transition for you on the baseball side, but to continue to winning there, and, you know, I mean, you won your Army won the 5th straight Patriot League title last year. I mean, I guess that's always the expectation, the top goal of the program. How did you guys factor that in during the season? I mean, because you could talk about it's one game by game, right? But then when you get to the postseason where every out, every strike counts, you know, how did you guys approach that? How did you approach that as a coach?
Yeah, no, there were some positives about this job taking over. One of the ones that was really tough was, like, usually when you take over a job, it's because they didn't do a good job. They had done a great job. So you're coming into a situation where the expectations are really high. And we had to kind of just figure out how to get these guys to respond to us and get to know us. And part of what we try to do is, in a sense, and it really wasn't any real magic sauce, but we spent a lot of time with them and tried to free them up in some instances. Like, we didn't change a ton, but there were some, you know, we kind of manipulated some things within the program, but these guys were ready to go. And, you know, we went on a great run in the middle of the year that kind of really set us up, knowing that we were going to be in position to win the regular season title and then be the #1 seed. And that first series versus Lafayette in the semifinal, we lose game 1 and we're down, I think 4-0 in like the 4th inning. Yeah. We hadn't done that all year. And we were not playing like ourselves. And then we got something to go, and then the momentum hit. And then the next 4 games, you know, we were really, really good. But there was, I think, that piece of the expectation of, you're not supposed to lose now. You know, like, you're supposed to beat everybody. You're supposed to run away with this tournament championship. And it's really, really hard. And so we tried to just remain as calm as we could, let the guys kind of get through it. And they did a really nice job because we had really, really good leaders. And when you talk about Kevin DeBrule and Ross Friedrich and letting those guys really lead the program. And I said it a ton last year. I coached the team, but Kevin, or I led the team. I coached the team. Kevin DeBrule led the team. I mean, it was that way. I looked at him sometimes and be like, "What's going on?" He's like, "We got you, coach." And I'm like, I hope so. And all of a sudden it's a 5-run inning. It's a 10-run inning. And we just went on our way. So, you know, the great thing is, again, that tradition of success, but there is a kind of that unseen pressure that our guys feel day to day, because, like, they haven't been the hunter in a long time. They've been the hunted for their entire careers. And it does bring its own challenges, but I think we look at it as a good thing. You know, but we have to show up every day and work as hard as we can so that we can put ourselves in position to be successful.
Yeah, I guess last week the preseason Patriot League awards were released, and, you know, you're picked again to win the 6th straight title, and you have Sam Ruda as the player of the year, you have Derek Berg as the defensive player of the year, and Mike Ruggieri as the pitcher of the year. So you sweep all the categories, right, Coach? And so, I mean, I thought I saw maybe a post or something where, yeah, it's nice to have those things, but I mean, you still got to keep the guys focused, right? I mean, we'll talk about the talent that you guys have coming back in a second, and we talked about this a little bit, but I mean, that's like kind of expected, maybe, and now you just gotta keep on grinding, right?
Yeah, I mean, the head coaches in the league, they did a nice job of just putting the big old bullseye, making sure that it was squarely on our backs, which is fine. And again, the preseason awards with Derek and Mike and Sam, like that's because we have good players and then they've been successful. So they should be recognized for it. But the preseason awards, like anything, they give those out for free. At the end of the year, you had to have earned it. And so like, it's nice because it gives us some social media credit. We can kind of post it and recruiting. It's a really great thing, but obviously these guys talk about what they want at the end. So, I don't know if we talked about it as a team at all. Like it's not something that's a conversation piece because it really has nothing to do with what we want to get accomplished day to day. It doesn't have anything that's going to, really help us in our opening weekend down in Cary. So we just kind of keep moving along and just kind of stay focused in the moment. That's what I've kept asking them to do is worry about today, plan for tomorrow, and don't go any further than that. There's just too much unknowns to it. And they've got too much to do day to day to really kind of get lost in the future. Because it's going to change quickly as the season starts.
No doubt. I was talking to a friend who's a scout, and I was talking to him about he actually sent like the preseason votes and for the Patriot League to me, and then I asked him. I was mentioning him a couple players, and I was mentioning Sam and Derek, and from what he told me, there's a legit chance that those two guys have a chance to get drafted this year. That's how talented they are. And, you see Derek getting recognized as one of the top 50 catchers in America by, I guess, Division I baseball. And I'm like, top 50, I mean, let's narrow that down a little bit, but Derek first, he came in, I believe, as well. I don't know if he was a catcher in high school. I don't know his background much, but I know he was kind of a utility guy, maybe his first couple of years. And then last year, he was like was he your leadoff guy last year?
Yeah, we kind of did a little bit of everything with him. We kind of had took a little bit different approach with some of the guys, but Derek was a all-conference second baseman as a sophomore. And I remember when I first got the job, we were walking across campus, and he's like, "Coach, I want to catch. I came in a catcher," and I was like, "Okay, like I met you 5 minutes ago, Derek. Great, you want to catch? We'll see what happens, right?" And one of the top catchers in the country, as good a catch and throw. Player, just a dynamic athlete, and has been awesome, for us. And Sam the same, But they we've tried with Derek. He hit leadoff for us. We moved Kevin away from the leadoff hole to Brule and put him in the 3 hole because he was the best, contact hitter. So we're thinking he can drive in a ton of runs. And Derek had a chance to start the game and change it in a swing. And he did it a few times. Like, that's not the guy. Like, he doesn't look like a leadoff hitter. He didn't hit like a leadoff hitter, but the game could change. And that was what we wanted. And then, and then Sam was in the 2 hole, and then Kevin, and Ross. Like, those first 4, you didn't really want to go through them very often, but they did a really good job. But yeah, Derek is somebody that, just keeps getting better and better. The more he plays, the better he gets, and has a chance to really, really, with a good season, put himself in some prime position for the draft and play professionally. Where Sam has been kind of a guy since high school. He was a guy that is probably one of the higher rated players that West Point has had coming as an incoming player. Struggled a little bit last year. I mean, not a ton. His numbers were still pretty good. But his sophomore year was really, really good. He's primed to have I think a great year this year. And again, the 2 of them, and I think it would be a great thing. And just as we've seen kind of within the football program, when you can have some consistency in getting guys into, professional sports, it helps everything. It helps people understand West Point. It helps recruiting. It helps in so many different ways. So we're hoping those guys get an opportunity to play.
Yeah, no doubt. I was in contact with Jacob Hurtubise this last week, and we're hoping to get him on the podcast next week. And there's an Army grad who's on the 40-man roster of the Reds right now, right, kind of knocking on the door, so to speak, of the big leagues. And you're talking like Chris Raleigh, right? You're talking some really a prime, uncharted waters there. But I mean, that's positive news for the program, no doubt, when you can see a guy like Jacob move up the minor leagues of the Reds. He's been with the Reds organization, I believe, from the jump. And that's got to be something good also for promoting the program, I'm guessing.
No, I think it's great. And as those guys have been successful, I think, again, they were really good within the organizations, but I bet anybody that you talk to in the Reds organization, they trust Jacob Hurtubise as much as anybody. They know who he's going to be when he shows up. They know he's going to stay out of trouble. He's going to be a productive member of their organization and their community. And then on the field, he's got really, really good skills. They become kind of the prototypical professional player. And so as he does better, it helps Sam. It helps Derek and hopefully guys down the road, because, I think, again, it was Mike Tomlin. I think he talked about like why he liked players from the academy or West Point. Like he knew who they were. He knew they were going to work, they were going to be coachable. They were going to be in the facility. They were going to work their tails off. Our guys are the exact same. And as that word spreads, and so it can only help our guys. And so we're hoping, and I think obviously he's got a great chance for Jacob to make it to the big leagues this year, which would be an outstanding accomplishment, not just for himself, which it is, but for all the academies and especially West Point.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was thinking about, like, I've covered the baseball team probably parts of 20 years, right? And I've seen and just talking to scouts and just to get, because sometimes when I was at West Point, the scouts were looking at the opponents that you were playing more than they were looking at the Army players. And now they have two guys that when you go down the Cary or you go down to Sugar Land or where you go to different parts of the country and play now early in the season, that's where scouts are out there looking at these guys, right? And scouts are looking at not only those guys, but they attract eyeballs onto your team in general. So,
yeah. No, I think that's 100% correct. And we keep getting kind of emails or calls about what our rotation is, where we're playing, guys that'll be in attendance to see them, and how many times they want to get out to watch our guys. And again, I think what you're saying is exactly right. And we had it a couple times at Marist when I was a player too. Is you have one guy that they want to come see, and then they fall in love with another one, and it kind of can spiral in a really positive direction, and that's where guys like Braden Galinsky or Mike Ruggieri or different, like they have more eyeballs on them too, and for our younger guys as well. So it's a great thing, and those two guys deserve it. They've put in a ton of work, and they're supremely talented, and we're looking forward to the season with them, because if we're going to be good, they got to be good. So we're excited.
No doubt. Let's let's get into the rest of the roster. With Kevin and Ross graduating, first base and shortstop, I guess, may open up. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts at those two positions? I see you have some younger players maybe up the middle. What are the plans at those two positions?
Yeah, shortstop to kind of start the year would be Chris Barr. He's a sophomore from Florida. He played second base late in the year, kind of became the everyday second baseman for us. Switch hitter. He is kind of your prototypical leadoff hitter. He's a pain. He gets on, he can run the bases, he can steal, he can do some things, but he's kind of solidified himself as the opening day shortstop, which we're excited about. And then Carter Hewitt is another Florida kid. He's a sophomore as well. That really, he just trailed and walked right behind Sam Reuter or Ross Friedrich last year. He was attached to their hips and just kind of learning from them, and has a chance to drive the baseball. And it was interesting. We were talking about it the other day. As sophomores, I don't think anybody truly knew Kevin DeBrule or Ross Friedrich's name. And these guys can be the next. Like, they don't need to be Kevin DeBrule or Ross Friedrich. They just need to be good players. And I think they have it in them. They just need to play. But those two guys, so we'll go with a little bit more youth than we were, obviously positionally last year. But we're excited about those two guys because they bring a different dynamic and some kind of youthful ignorance, which sometimes on the field is okay. Sometimes it drives me crazy, but sometimes it's actually it can be a good thing.
You had some freshmen get in the lineup last year, and I mean those guys have stepped up, and now it's their sophomore year. So I'm guessing like guys like Addison Ainsworth, maybe there's a few others. Sorry if I'm,
Yep.
but can you talk about that? The guys going for their freshman and sophomore year, the guys who actually were in the starting lineup and playing a decent amount for you.
Yeah, so we had Addison Ainsworth and Ethan Ellis in the outfield. Those guys were the corner guys. They hit at the bottom part of the lineup. One of them's going to kind of have to make a jump into the middle part, but those guys got a ton of experience, which was outstanding. And it's hard. I think people underestimate. It's hard in just college baseball. The numbers of guys as freshmen getting quality time is super low, and then doing it here where there's another kind of set of challenges is impressive. So we had those two guys that did a really good job. Thomas Schreck is another one. He'll probably start at second base. He got some limited time for us last year, but he'll kind of step in at second. And then Billy Parker is a sophomore. He didn't play a ton. He played some midweek games and got some at bats, but he had probably the best fall offensively out of anybody.
Wow.
And just a physical specimen. He is. If you saw him walk around, if they made a magazine of West Point cadets, like he's the prototypical guy. He gets up in the morning, he eats nails, and comes ready to work. So we're excited about him. Again, there may be a learning curve with him a little bit, but when he hits the baseball, it's pretty electric.
Nice. Talk about the rotation behind Ruggieri and how your bullpen might be setting up.
Yeah. So Ronnebaum and Ruggieri, those two guys, like they're going to be our horses. We're going to have to give them the baseball and let them ride. After that, it's going to be kind of, I don't want to say necessarily by committee, but I think we've got 7 or 8 guys that we need to figure out what their roles are going to be. Dom Trippi was a guy that started midweek games for us, probably has the best stuff on the team. He's going to have to make a jump. Joe Voucher's a little not a little. He's like a side armor right-hander. His stuff is really, really good. We have a bunch of sophomores that are now juniors that kind of need to step into roles that the guys that graduated, kind of left. And I think we have the ability to do it. We have one freshman, Trey Yates, that, again, he's a little bit older as a freshman here, but his stuff is really good. So we have to kind of figure out the late game type of stuff. And then when we play 4-game series, like we'll have to add in that 4th starter. Last year we had 3 starters, and then we kind of flexed a guy in and out because the way the conference schedule is kind of screwy. Some weekends it's a 3-game weekend, some are a 4. You have the 7-inning game in there. So there's a lot of different ways we can do it. But Steve Graver is another one. Steve, as a sophomore, threw really, really well. Last year was not as successful as we wanted to be. He's been really good so far. Like, he's a guy that could eat up. I mean, if he could pitch 45 to 50 innings, like, we're going to be really, really good. So, it'll be, I think that first 4 weekends, like, the box scores may look kind of a little bit all over the place, but probably by design, because we need to figure out kind of who can extend for 3, 4, 5 innings and who's kind of your 1 and 2 inning guys. And I don't know. I had a ton of questions going into last year, and then it formulates. And I always kind of do it that way because the growth that these guys can make in a short period of time is huge. So we've got to kind of we try and be a little more patient in developing those roles on the pitching end.
The first 4 weeks when you're on the road and you're playing in North Carolina, Texas, Georgia, I mean, those are important weeks, like you said, to find out about your pitching staff, to find out about the younger players in your lineup. And then I was just wanting you to get into the schedule a little bit, where that first weekend, next weekend in Cary, I think you play 6 games. Do you play 6 games in 2 days or no?
No, so we play 4. There's 6.
Okay.
I think there's 6 games. I don't know how it's scheduled. Yeah, so we play 4. We play Monmouth, Penn State, and then on the Sunday we play a doubleheader on getaway day. And so we have 4 games that weekend, 3 down in Florida, 3 down in Texas, and then a 4-game series versus Georgia State. So we kind of flex again back and forth between the 3 and 4 game sets. But 36 innings on the first weekend is
enough, right?
Yeah, like 27. Sometimes you're trying to figure it out. Like 36 is because your starters, their pitch count and just our workload is not to a place, and we're not going to mortgage our season on a game one or two. So, we'll use the most amount of pitchers in probably the first 2 weeks, and then we'll start to settle into what we'll do.
The first weekend, like you're playing Monmouth and Penn State. Penn State, you get to play, right? Big Ten school. I see in Sugarland, you're playing Creighton, who's a traditionally strong baseball school. Yeah, and you got Air Force. You get a chance to see Air Force out there, and you talked about the Georgia State stuff. The Florida games. I mean, what do you like about this schedule? Would you say as your non-conference schedule?
Yeah, this is the first time I've played in 3 straight kind of like round robin tournaments, where you're really not. It's not a traditional series where you have 3 games against the same opponent. So it provides a little bit of challenge because just from a preparation standpoint, you have triple the work of a normal week. But I also think you're going to have to play kind of different styles. You're going to have a different approach day to day. I think it allows you to really kind of focus on Friday and then focus on Saturday and then focus on Sunday, as opposed to kind of taking a big look about a series. But, I think they're all going to have their unique challenges. I think it's important. We've made it a priority with Air Force that we play them every year when scheduling allows. We're running into a little bit of an issue as they try and figure out their conference alignment and schedule, moving forward. But, we're committed to playing them, which again, I think that's a great series to play. I think it's important for both academies. I think it's a great showcase for academies too. We'll try and play them in Texas every year because we think that's a great place for us to. It's got to be a recruiting ground for us, so we'll play there. We don't have necessarily the big Power 5 schools, but again, like Louisiana Tech, like they're good. Stetson, they've been a game away from Omaha in the last half decade. Obviously Air Force has been pretty good. Like there's some really good teams on there. So we'll be tested early, and hopefully, I think, we'll learn a lot about ourselves in that first month.
Looking forward to it. One last question for you. What's it like having an AD that was a former Major League Baseball player, to work for? And I'm not saying that baseball gets any preference over, the other sports, Chris, but what's that like?
No, it's great. I think more so it's really positive because I think he understands the game. Like one of the things that he had mentioned, last year was like understanding like how like we had such a great year and it doesn't always end that way. Like the best team doesn't always win. And obviously we had won, so it was okay. But just like understanding that baseball is we play 50 to 56 games. Like there's a lot that goes on, the ebbs and flows of a season, and obviously, the intensity and the pressure of like a football or a lacrosse where it's 12 to 15 games where we're playing that in 3 weeks, is different. So, I think he's very in tune with that. Any sort of our, conversations have been really positive. He's great to work for. I think all of our coaches would agree on that. But I don't know if we get any special treatment. I should probably try and push the envelope on that a little bit. But now again, I think looking at college baseball as a whole and then forward thinking into what's going on with the NCAA and some of the more global issues, to have our AD who not only played college baseball, played pro baseball, but is on the NCAA committee. Like those things are positives for us because he's got a voice, and he's got a voice for us at West Point and the academies, which is going to be huge long term.
No doubt. Chris, we really appreciate your time as you prepare for the start of the season. Like you said, you're going to be playing a lot of games in a couple of weeks, and we're anxious to see how you guys do. Get up to a few games at Doubleday Field too, and see you guys. Thanks so much, and we wish you all the best on your season. Appreciate your time today.
No, this is great. I appreciate it. Thank you.